Samantha Lasky, and I'm the Director of Communications for the Citizenship and Sustainability part of AT&T. So what that essentially means is I work on helping AT&T communicate about some of the things that we do in the community, from education, which I'll talk more about the education piece, of course, but the education, our environmental initiatives and sustainability, and some of our community engagement work. And then, of course, we do a host of other things, but that's enough for one gal. First of all, congratulations to Stacy and Shayla. It's awesome, and I can't wait to hear more about the app and everything that you did for the hackathon, but congratulations. And my role here today is to connect several of the exciting things that we do at AT&T, so the things that I just mentioned, like technology, innovation, education, and the hackathon. So I want to paint a full picture. And I'm sure you're familiar with some of the technology and innovation items. As you can see, they're all around us in this room, and I couldn't even begin to tell you what some of them do. That's because it's, as much as I think they're cool, I don't always get them. So our education work is through something called AT&T Aspire. So AT&T Aspire is our signature education initiative focused on high school success and workforce readiness. It's a $350 million commitment that AT&T has made, and we work to provide students, no matter their background, with the tools to help them succeed in high school, graduate from high school, and then be ready for career and workforce as they graduate. We bring all of our company's resources to bear on the education issue with the Aspire initiative, everything from funding and technology to employee volunteerism and mentoring. And that allows us to address the issue from a whole variety of angles. And we are, that $350 million commitment is about supporting and scaling successful organizations, investing in other new and innovative approaches, and putting our most powerful assets, our employees, to work on the issue. So just last week here in DC, we actually announced the $12.5 million, which is part of that $350 million across the country to new organizations. So we are now funding 30 additional organizations, or 30 additional programs. Some are organizations we funded previously, and they're going to serve nearly 28,000 students across the country. And those organizations went through a rigorous review process and an RFP process, and we believe that they're the best of the best. They were selected from, these 30 were selected from over 1,100 applicants, and they all have a proven track record of motivating students to stay in school and prepare for their next step in life. And many of the awardees deliver integrated student supports focusing on college and career readiness again. And one of them, the DC organization that we are supporting with $300,000 over the coming year, is the DC Promise Neighborhood Initiative, and specifically working with the College Success Foundation at the Cesar Chavez Public Charter School and Palisades, Kenilworth. It was really great. The event last week was fantastic, and we got to see the drum line, and that was awesome and invigorating. We also do a lot of support of STEM initiatives, so science, technology, engineering, and math programs. Since 1987, we've given more than $103 million towards STEM initiatives, and primarily because we know we need a diverse pipeline of talented workforce as we move forward, right? All these cool things in the room are designed and engineered by people that have these types of skills. So we also have seen that over 3/4 of the recent student hires that AT&T has hired are in these STEM-related jobs. So obviously, we already are seeing how much we need them. And we've supported organizations across the country, from Girls Who Code to Girl Scouts, which has initiatives in this area, the Fund for Public Schools in New York City, who just participated in the Hour of Code at the White House earlier this week, to Wheat Sheet Science, Curriki, and others. Then we also bring the innovation and the technology and education all together. And we know that our consumers and our customers want to see how we bring corporate responsibility to using the things that we are already doing and tie it back into AT&T. So per what I was saying before, since we've launched Aspire, we've gone beyond kind of traditional philanthropy, which is still really important, and that we know that giving the money away is important. But we're also trying to find ways to engage our network, cloud, and mobile technologies to impact education. So for example, earlier this year, we launched an online education with a MOOC leader, which is massive online, open courses. I totally blanked on the O. Massive online open courses. So we we partnered with Udacity, which is a leader in the MOOC space, and we launched something called a nano degree. So it's a new educational pathway that harnesses the web to empower people with quality, affordable, jobs-related, ready skills, and that anyone can get. The nano degrees are personalized, and as part of what we're doing at AT&T, we've worked with them on the curriculum. We're engaging with other businesses in this space, and we know that here at AT&T, they're going to be fully recognized for entry-level jobs. We're also providing paid internships for up to 100 students, and we are providing upwards of 1,000 scholarships through these other organizations that we're funding. So we're really excited about that. We've also worked with a lab school. Well, we're calling it a lab school, the Momenta School in Dallas, and we're bringing technology into the classroom and really looking at how we can get tablets and apps to work best for the students and for the teachers, and how everyone can leverage them to the best of their abilities and make the learning experience even more engaging and exciting for the kids. And then we've also partnered with the Connect Ed initiative, President Obama's Connect Ed initiative, with the goal of bringing broadband connectivity to 99% of American students within the next 5 years. So we are working with our partners to bring that broadband connectivity to schools across the country, and we're in the process of we will be in the process of rolling that out in the beginning of the year. So we're excited about that. And there's teacher professional development incorporated into that, because we know that just because you bring the tablets or the computers to the school and to the students, if the teachers haven't used them before in that capacity, it doesn't work as well either. And then, of course, hackathons, which you guys, of course, participated in and then won. So we work around the country with hackathons, and they're often held at educational institutions, like the one that you guys were at, which was at Howard University in October. We were really excited because this Women in Tech Hackathon had over 120 participants. And we, of course, brought AT&T employees and technology experts to help along the way and to provide some guidance. We think that hackathons bring together all of the different elements in order to find different applications that real people need, and including in the classroom. So we're super excited to have you here. And last but not least, our mentoring component, we have committed to over 1 million hours of mentoring by the end of 2016 by our employees. We have over 250,000 employees who are engaged in mentoring programs across the company, and we are well on our way to meeting that goal. We provide flexible options, so students sometimes come into the workplace, employees sometimes go to the students, and we also do things online through programs like We Teach Science. So the student and the employee don't have to be in the same place, but they still get to build that mentoring relationship. And so we're looking at all these different ways that we can do that and hope that we can continue to build that out. And we even do some mentoring here in DC with the Communities in School program. And in fact, the CIS, the Communities in School program, was here just a couple of weeks ago in the Innovation Center, and we could show them some of the cool things that we're doing, and they can meet with employees and learn more about what we do on a day-to-day basis, in the hopes that it will help encourage them and engage them in these cool technologies. So, and with that, I leave it to you, ladies. I want to introduce Shayla and Stacy. Shayla, the winners of the Howard University Women in Tech Hackathon. Shayla is a high school history and government teacher in Northeast DC. So I know you work hard every day. She's also the CEO and founder of Remix Education, an education training organization that provides more than 100 students with positive youth development programming. The Test for Me team lead during the hackathon, and I know we're going to learn a little bit more about that, and designing adaptive test software for teachers. And then Stacy, also, and it sounds like Stacy and Shayla became fast friends at the hackathon. Stacy is the CEO and founder of Pay Your Tuition Funds, LLC, a DC-based financial tech startup that helps students crowdfund money for their tuition and pay their loans off more quickly. She's a member of the Test for Me team, and she focused on the business side and the product marketing. So thank you both, ladies. Can't wait to hear about it.
My name is Shayla Adams, and I'm the founder of Test for Me, LLC. And I'm really excited to be here today with you all to talk to you a little bit more about why I started the app and sort of what my plans are for the future. The background behind the actual application comes from just the need for me as a teacher to create a test that could reach all of my students. Last year I was teaching and I had a class of 30 students, and I had about 5 students that could finish the test in 5 minutes, and I had maybe about 5 or 10 students that took them a day and a half to finish the test. And I thought to myself, is it really fair to give all of them one paper test when some of my students are barely working and struggling through speaking English, and others of my students could very well get into MIT? And I thought to myself, what if we could create an adaptive test that would change based on students' responses? So if you think about the GRE and how each level is based on the answers that the test taker provides, I want to bring that same technology to K through 12 classroom teachers. And really the atmosphere is really ripe for an innovation like this, because nationally we're moving towards a curriculum which is going to be using adaptive testing to measure student learning. This spring, the U.S. Department of Education has allowed several states to pilot SMART, which is going to be a testing software, and also PARC. And so students will be interacting with adaptive tests on a national level, and I think that we need to begin that process earlier in allowing students to do that at the classroom level. And so that's really sort of the impetus behind the creation of Test for Me. And I can talk a little bit more about how it works, but I'll let Stacey talk a little bit about her background as well.
My name is Stacey Wilson, and I am the CEO and founder of a company called PYT, Pay Your Tuition. And it's a crowdfunding platform for students for education, but we allow them to take the money that they do raise on the crowdfunding platform and leverage it to get better student loans in the private sector with banks. So we've brought the banks, the communities, and students and parents together to be able to lower the cost of financing your education. So me and Shayla met at the hackathon. We both wanted to go there. I was going to look for additional technology for our platform, and Shayla came up and made an announcement about her idea, and we just sort of ended up together. Everybody else had groups of 5, 6, picked 6 people. It ended up being 3 of us. Another one of the Howard students joined us, and we worked through the night, and we just pretty much, Shayla explained the idea to me, and then we tried to take the technology that was provided with the hackathon to be able to build out a platform. So we kind of, like she said, it was like, I guess, love at first sight. We instantly clicked because we both in the education technology space, so I wanted to make sure I worked on something that would be able to be beneficial to our platform as well.
So let me just walk you through how Test for Me works. Essentially, teachers will create categories of questions based on Bloom's taxonomy. And Bloom's taxonomy is pretty much the universal pedagogical tool in order to measure student learning based on questions. So you have the lowest rung, which is remembering, where questions are asked based on recall: who, what, where, when, how. The highest level, evaluating and synthesis, allows students to think at those higher order thinking levels. And so teachers will create questions and put them into these separate categories. Then teachers will create a path by which students will take the actual test. So currently, right now, there are online testing software available to teachers, but none of them allow the teachers to direct exactly the path in which the students take the test. So, for example, here you see some of the levels of Bloom's taxonomy here on the right-hand side. And so this question, the first question, is a knowledge-based question. So let's say a student, the first question says, when was the Declaration of Independence written? When was the Declaration of Independence written? So if the student gets this question right, then they will go on to a comprehension question. Question 2, give a definition for salutary neglect. So a comprehension question will require students to do show a little bit more about their knowledge of the topic than just a recall question. So if they get that question right, then they would go on to an application question. And in these questions, we're asking students to apply the knowledge that they've learned. So if you can think about it like this, a student might spend 30 minutes taking a test on questions that are extremely hard, maybe because those are the first 5 questions that they get on that paper test. With an adaptive test, it reduces the amount of test time because students don't waste time on answers on questions that are super easy, or they don't waste time on questions that are super hard. So it actually gets right to the meat of what the students know, and it's more accurate in its results. So I'll just go back to the beginning. Let's say a student got the question wrong. If they got this knowledge question wrong, then they would get another knowledge question. Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Well, then let's say they got that one right. Then they would go back up to a comprehension question. And at the top, they have a meter that's kind of gauging where they are in each of the categories. And so at the end of when their report prints out, it shows what students knew in each of the different categories. So then the teacher can then go back and remediate that student and say, it looks like you're having a lot of issues with comprehension of this particular topic. Let's go back and let's do some more activities to help you in that vein. Or maybe a student is really doing a great job with the recall questions, but they're having some issues with the synthesis and combining ideas from different topics. Then the teacher can work with them on utilizing that higher order thinking skill. So that's basically how the app would work. I think it was really beneficial for us being at the hackathon to be able to interact with senior level IBM, AT&T folks, because they really helped us understand the back end part of what it takes to build an app. We were able to learn about all of the different categories and types of technologies that could be used on the back end, on the front end, with the graphic design, and it really was like a crash course in app development. And I think walking away from it, I felt stronger talking to developers about what I needed from my app, because we spent just an intense amount of time thinking about what would be the best for this particular application. So Stacy was really instrumental in helping to kind of craft the story of Test for Me and helping me to think through how I wanted to present it. So next steps, Stacy and I talked a lot about the business to business model of Test for Me. And so essentially in the future, what we're looking for right now, we've actually just applied for the Small Business Innovation and Research Grant with the National Science Foundation, and we'll be applying with the Department of Education this January. We're looking for funding, we're looking for technology, tech developers, really just anybody that's willing to lend mentoring and resources to me, as business is not my background. That was Stacy's kind of forte during the hackathon, but any help in that area would be more than needed at this point. And did you have any things that you wanted to for Go PYT that you?
Yeah, no. I was just happy again just to be able to work on an education technology platform, and being a minority in technology with a non-technical background has definitely been something that I found that Washington D.C. has been really, really good in terms of helping us with resources, because it's not necessarily the West Coast, so usually a lot of times you have access to be able to get to people to be able to help you out to get to your next steps here in Washington D.C. So just as a minority leader in the technology space, that I find that the AT&T Hackathon was definitely beneficial to us.
Like to do is just tell you a little bit about my role in AT&T's sort of broad approach to innovation and how hackathons fit into that. And then that'll give you an idea about the subject matter I can address, and then you can ask me questions. So we like to think about our approach to innovation at AT&T as being based on two pillars: openness and collaboration. And we have several programs that are sort of the instantiations of those concepts. One of them is the developer program, which I'll go back to at the end here. And the Hackathon program is part of the developer program, and I do run the developer program, so we can talk in detail about that. But we have other programs that also support the same concepts. We have a Foundry program, which is actually a destination for openness and collaboration with not just developers, but other carriers, manufacturers, vendors, students, entrepreneurs, a whole host of sort of the innovation community. And we have 5 of those foundries: one in Palo Alto, one in Plano, 2 in Plano, one in Atlanta, and one in Tel Aviv. We also have an internal innovation program that's called TIP, the Innovation Pipeline. It's probably the largest crowdsourcing idea program out there. We have about 130,000 of our employees that are members of it. We've generated 28,000 ideas over the last 3 years that we've been up and running. And we invest about $44 million in ideas that came out of that internal innovation sourcing program. Everything from new products for our customers to more efficient ways to run our business. And then we also have the labs, which you probably heard some about. We talk about those a lot too, where we've been inventing things for 100 years back in the Bell Labs days, everything from the transistor back in the beginning to C++, and these days working very much on opening our network so that we can continue to collaborate with the innovators along the edge. But a big part of all of our innovation efforts is in the developer program. We've had a developer program since 1996. It's definitely the oldest carrier developer program, maybe in the world, certainly in this country. It's been voted by Evans Data for the last 6 years as the #1 carrier program for developers. So we like to actually think we're the best at this. It's very illustrative of our commitment to supporting application developers who want to use the strength of our network in their end customer experiences. We started off with for about the first 10 years of the program, had just a couple of thousand developers. Applications for the mobility networks was kind of nascent, but with the introduction of the iPhone, we saw applications for mobile networks really take off. And in the last 5 years, our program has grown from 2,500 members to nearly 55,000 developers coming towards the end of this year, and it's growing at about 20-30% a year. So it's a very successful program for us in allowing us to have a rich communication with the developer community. But we also think that its popularity must mean it's a pretty good tool set. In the last 2 years, we've gone from just being educational and support for developers to actually evangelizing and teaching developers how to use APIs into our network services. Currently, we have APIs into all of our kind of core messaging and location services, some speech translation, some advertising. But all of that has been in place to allow us to move towards what we think is going to be our big offering coming up later this year, which is new IMS-based core services, voice, video, and messaging that will really provide rich communication services for people to integrate into their applications. As part of running the developer program, we have a hackathon program. It's about 3 years old. We have between 35 and 40 hackathons a year. Almost every weekend we have a hackathon somewhere. Always one big one a year. We have one before CES. We had 1,000 developers at that one last year. And we actually had a second big one this year at CTIA's Super Mobility Week, where we had about 300 developers, I think. Our hackathon program is really a grassroots program to allow us to teach and learn from the developer community. We also partner our hackathon efforts with a lot of our what we consider important messaging platforms. So we also often run a hackathon that's got an Autism Speaks theme, or an It Can Wait, No Distracted Driving theme, or a Women in Tech theme that would encourage more females to get into the STEM kind of fields. And because of those kinds of focus, we get a wide variety of people participating in hacks. We often get a lot of people who actually are not learned coders. We're actually teaching some people to code, which I think makes it a really interesting resource to have out there in the field. And you guys have just heard all about a recent hack that we had at Howard. Was it a Women in Tech hack? Mm-hmm. It was, that's what I thought. And frankly, I find these to be some of the most interesting hackathons that we have. The Women in Tech hackathons actually often attract a lot of people who have not coded before, who learn to code at the hacks, which is very, very satisfying for me to be feeling like we're teaching people stuff like that. And we get really interesting, thoughtful applications out of these hacks, like this teaching assistant. It's things that you don't always get out of a bunch of guys in Silicon Valley. So it's kind of nice to see the technology used in a different way. There are other parts of the developer program. We run dev labs that actually almost certify the use of some of our APIs. We do run a big conference right before CES, between our hackathon and CES every year, with a major messaging platform from our officers, but also some very rich tracks and learning tracks in the afternoon about how to code for some of the emerging platforms that we're opening up these days, things like Connected Car and Digital Life. And we have forums and blogs and a large website that supports, device information across the board on what we have available in the mobile ecosystem, and increasingly what the real opportunity is for developing for some of our new emerging platforms like Connected Car and Digital Life. So that's kind of what I am involved with in a real fast nutshell. So I'm here to answer any questions you guys might have.
Okay. I definitely have a question about mentorship post hackathon. I think that
Yep.
the experience was so rich for both of us, networking, getting to meet so many people in the tech space. But afterwards, for me, I've had issues trying to connect with other developers that can sort of help me move the platform forward. And so do you all provide any type of post-hackathon follow-up or mentorship, or have a program in place for folks that aren't really into the tech development side of it that can get some resources?
Did you join the developer program at the hackathon?
No, I don't think that.
Okay,
no, I don't
because
remember
usually that happens, but it doesn't always happen. That would be my first suggestion, is to join the developer program, which can be found at developer.att.com. It's free to join.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
It's at developer.att.com. It's free to join, and it's full of forums and blogs where you could look for those kinds of partnerships, right? We don't have a formal mentorship program for hackathon participation. We have had one in the past. It's frankly just not one we're running right now. We are always, and I'm sure Alex would have told you this, I'm not sure if Alex or Ben ran your hackathon, but you should have gotten a contact at an AT&T person, and we would always be available to try to put you in touch with somebody that can help you if you reach out to us. Unfortunately, right now we don't have a formal program in place that proactively reaches back out to the participants, but we'd be glad to help you, on any kind of ad hoc basis. So did Ben Nelson or Alex Dunn run your hackathon?
Alex.
Oh, was okay, all right. I think that one of them was there though for part of it.
Alex.
Yeah.
Alex.
Okay.
Friday night.
Okay. Anything else?
Other questions? So what's your schedule for other hackathons at HBCUs in particular and focused on women?
I don't have a 2015 schedule yet, because this is, as I mentioned, we have a huge event at CES that kind of takes up all our time until we get past that first weekend in January. I don't know that we have a Howard hackathon scheduled for next year. There certainly isn't any reason we would not want to do one, right? We do find, though, that we have a chock-full schedule, and because they really need to be run on a weekend, we kind of have finite slots for them, right? But I'm sure that we're thinking about doing you guys again, because this was a very successful hackathon.
Do you have any resources around courses that someone could take in terms of learning to code? Once you participated in the hackathon, maybe you could, join, maybe there's like a MOOC course or something that we could take locally that would help kind of hone in on the skills that we learned during the hackathon?
So there's a couple opportunities that I would tell you about. First place, again, join the developer program, because the developer program has a number of free educational opportunities. We of course, run web seminars in different kinds of coding. But even more useful probably are what we call our bootstrap weeks, where there's actually a training period and then a build period. It runs over a week. It's all online, that we teach how to build in a specific sort of environment. We have dev labs that provide this sort of mini certification in writing for some of our APIs. And you mentioned Moog sort of courses. There are some, there's actually an entire computer science degree at Georgia Tech that's sponsored by AT&T that's an online course. But of course it's a full degree. But the place to start is with the developer program. There's all sorts of tool sets there, and we'll tell you Dev Labs travel around the country just like hackathons. It will tell you where they're going to be. We should have schedules for Dev Labs and hackathons up probably by the second week in January for 2015. And that's where I would start.
And I promise my last question.
That's okay.
One thing that everyone that attended the hackathon kept mentioning was how just sort of open the process was, that, you know, developers weren't required to sign NDAs, and it was just sort of like a growth mindset where everyone was just trying to grow together and learn from one another. Now, after the hackathon, would you recommend going to developer.ATI? I'm sorry, I'm not writing this down.
Developer.att.com.
Developer.att.com to find resources on intellectual property, or like helping, you know, once you develop this app, how do you protect your idea? Do you have any resources around that you could give us?
You know, I don't know that we have anything up in the blogs about that right now. We have at times in the past. It's not, you know, we do come at hackathons and at Foundry work with this very simplistic view to IP, right? In the hackathon, we really don't treat IP at all, right? We're just very open. We don't sign NDAs or anything like that. In the Foundry, we have a very, very simple NDA that says, what you bring is yours, and what I bring is mine. If we build something together, we own it together, right? But we don't provide legal assistance on IP issues, you know, through any of our programs. I mean, and IP, you know, you really need to go to third parties to talk about IP issues, because it's your own sort of legal protection, right? So it's a lawyer issue, not a developer issue.
So on the crowdsourcing of ideas coming out of AT&T, you're familiar with the GE program, where GE actually has done that, and they've actually commercialized a number of technologies. Anything in particular that springs to mind that has resulted from your crowdsourcing efforts?
Yeah, and remember, these are internal crowdsourcing efforts. So we have a number of our products, particularly in the enterprise space, came out of ideas in our TIP program. One in particular that's out in the market is known as Toggle. It is a software implementation approach that allows you to put two identities on a single device and have them be secure from each other. And if you think about this in the case of bring your own device world in enterprise, this is very preferred by the enterprise IT managers, because they can put enterprise applications and data in the enterprise controlled side of the toggle and not have those things be accessed or corrupted by the personal side of the toggle. And it allows the enterprise to have control over the business side of the toggle to do things like erase it or cut it off should, you know, there be a change in employment, or should the device be lost without touching the personal side. So that's an example of an idea. There's some pretty complex things that come out of it, like how to share experiences across multiple devices that are actually driving a lot of our work right now in labs.